Have you ever picked up a product, noticed that it said fragrance free, and thought, okay, this should be safe? I used to think that too. But after years of working with families who were doing everything right, buying fragrance free products, switching cleaners, trying to protect their health, I started noticing a pattern. People were still reacting to these products that were labeled fragrance free. Asthma, headaches, brain fog, skin irritation. And I realized that the problem wasn't sensitivity. In fact, the problem was the label. Fragrance-free doesn't always mean what we think it means. And once you understand how fragrance ingredients are allowed to be disclosed or not disclosed, it changes how you read labels forever. So let's take a look at why I don't rely on the term fragrance-free when it comes to choosing my products and what I do instead. Welcome back. I'm Amanda. I'm a building biology practitioner, certified home inspector, a healthy home expert, and I am the creator of Healthy House on the Block, where I empower you with information, knowledge, everything that's research-based to create the healthiest home possible. One that doesn't burden your body down day after day. And today we are going to talk about fragrance. And specifically the term fragrance-free, what you can look for instead, because that is not a regulated term, and how I go about finding safe products for my home. So first, let's clear up one of the biggest misconceptions, and that is that fragrance is a single ingredient, which it absolutely is not. It's a catch-all term that can legally represent hundreds or even thousands of undisclosed chemicals. So from a regulatory standpoint, fragrance formulas are considered trade secrets. And what that means is that manufacturers are not required to list individual fragrance ingredients on any of their labels, even when those chemicals are associated with known health effects. Now, from a building biology and environmental health perspective, fragrance exposure matters because many fragrance chemicals are known to affect multiple systems in the body. Research published in Environmental Health Perspectives showed that fragranced consumer products are a major source of indoor air pollution. Studies have linked fragrance exposure to respiratory symptoms. This would be maybe an asthma attack or airway inflammation. It has also been linked to neurological symptoms like headaches and migraines, and then endocrine disruption. And this is particularly from fragrance solvents such as phthalates. There's a large population that was surveyed that have also found that a significant percentage of people experience health effects from fragranced products, even when they're used exactly as directed. So they're using them in the right way, but they're still being impacted on a very negative level. And it's not rare. It's not imaginary. This is a real problem. But another piece that often gets overlooked is what happens after fragrance chemicals are released into your indoor air. The EPA has shown that fragrance VOCs, and this is especially terpenes, can react with indoor ozone. And what this does is it creates a secondary pollutant like formaldehyde and ultrafine particles. So even if a product smells mild, the chemical reactions happening in indoor air can still impact respiratory and neurological health, especially in new or tightly sealed homes where the problems can be exacerbated. Are you a little unsure about where you even should be starting with the healthy house? Like, what are the first steps? After 10 plus years of hands-on experience, I know what those first steps are, and I know the steps to take that won't have you spending lots of money in the beginning, but will get you excited for all of the changes and all the potential that your house has. The truth is, creating a healthy house doesn't have to be really expensive. It doesn't have to be really complicated. You just have to know the exact steps to take. Anybody can check things off a list, and that's exactly what I'm here to help you do. My free ebook is an amazing resource to help you get started on getting toxins out of your house and creating healthier habits, and also planning for the future for some of those bigger changes. And here's the hard truth. Fragrance-free is a marketing term. It actually is not a regulated health standard. So a product labeled fragrance-free can still contain masking fragrances or fragrance components embedded into other ingredients or even other preservatives, and they off-gas in very similar ways. And so that's why two products, both labeled fragrance-free, can have completely different chemical profiles. When people tell me they're frustrated because they've done everything right but still feel unwell, oftentimes this can actually be the missing piece. This is where an MSDS, which is actually now called an SDS or a safety data sheet, becomes incredibly useful. So, unlike labels, SDS documents are actually written for occupational safety and regulatory compliance. They're not for marketing at all, which means they are not perfect, but they often tell us a much more honest story about how a product behaves and what risks are associated with exposure. So to find an SDS, you can usually just search the product name that you're looking at, followed by SDS. You can do this right in Google, or you can go to the manufacturer's website and search it on their website. You can also check on the manufacturer's website under safety or compliance documentation. If a company makes this information difficult to find, that alone is meaningful information. However, sometimes you can actually contact the company itself and be directed to the correct person who can get you a copy of the SDS or send you a link to it. The good thing is you will not have to go through this entire document. You don't have to read all 16 sections. There are a few sections that really stand out when it comes to the health and wellness of you and the health of the product. So start with section 2. This is going to be hazard identification. The next section is section 3. This talks about ingredient composition, especially proprietary blends. We want to be looking for something that will not disclose certain ingredients because it's proprietary. Then you would move to section 8 for exposure controls like ventilation or protective equipment. So PPE, what needs to be worn by workers when they're using this product or material. And then section 11 for toxicological information. This is going to reveal what type of irritation has occurred or chronic exposure risks to workers. So some of the big things you want to pay attention to are phrases like may cause respiratory irritation. Another one might be may affect the central nervous system. And then another one I like to look for is prolonged or repeated exposure. So this tells us that if you are exposed to this material or this product constantly, even at low levels, it can be harmful to your body. We also really want to avoid things that are going to affect the nervous system and things that are going to cause respiratory irritation that can lead to asthma attacks and other issues. If a product requires gloves, if it requires eye protection or even mechanical ventilation for workers, it's worth kind of pausing before assuming that it's harmless for daily use in your home, especially if you're going to be using it around children. It might be a product or material that needs either a little more research or we should just take off of the shelf completely when we're looking at different options. One of the biggest barriers to the healthier choices that we're trying to make is overwhelm. And so I want to kind of give you some help and guidance in that particular area. You do not need to research everything at once. I usually recommend working one category at a time and prioritizing products that affect indoor air quality and using symptoms as data alongside your research. It's also really important to look at products that you're using every day throughout the day. This can be a huge area that you could focus on that could really reduce the amount of toxins that you're exposed to on a daily basis. Because the goal here is reduction. It's not perfection. It's what lowers your overall toxic load. So when it comes to brands, I typically do not trust brands just because they use all the right buzzwords. I really love certain brands because of their consistent transparency. This looks like clear ingredient disclosure. It looks like easy access to SDS documents and really straightforward answers when questions are asked. Because I really think that transparency matters more than labels oftentimes. You can also look for third-party certifications like EWG verified when it comes to some of your home products. This is a great place to start, and oftentimes these companies are very willing to disclose their ingredients. I do have a short list of some of my favorite brands that really have cut out all fragrances. They don't just call them fragrance free, they actually give you a list of what's in the product. I have that linked on the blog this week, so feel free to click the link in the video description and it'll bring you to the page which has all of this in more detail than what I'm kind of quickly going through in this video, but then also the brands that I truly trust. So if there's just one thing I hope you take away from this, it is this. Fragrance-free is not a guarantee of safety. It's an invitation to actually look deeper. So learning how to read an SDS shifts you from relying on marketing to relying on information. And honestly, that is where that real confidence comes from. And if this was helpful, you can find the full research-based article linked in the video description below. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you can take at least one idea from this week's video and apply it to your own home. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I am here every single week with new tips and new ideas to help you create the healthiest home possible.